Right, guys, we're back with the YouTube. What's actually happened today is I've done a push session earlier with Alan and just chatting with Don on the way back. We've decided to do my Q&A first in a separate video, and then we'll do the push day to follow about a week later. So what I'm going to do now is run through the millions of questions I got on Instagram last night because I have so many followers and I'm so famous. But realistically, no, I actually don't know what happened. It's like I got shadow banned again. But I have some good questions in, and I'll touch on some of them now. And obviously, the most famous question that was always going to be asked was, "What's my current cycle?" So I'll leave that to last to keep you going. But the first question is the first few that were in were obviously because I had in about my socks and putting on my socks. I have the toe shoes on today, so there's no need for socks. So you'll have to wait for another video to see me putting on my socks. Um, but first there I see is Pierce Johnson. What shows have you planned? Looking unreal too, brother. Much appreciated, Pierce. So are you. I know they're a few weeks out now, so hope your prep is going well. Shows I have planned myself. Provisionally now, I was hoping there was going to be a regional in Ireland, but I don't think it's going to happen unless for some reason there's massive numbers at the muscle contest, and muscle contest Ireland decide to put one in around September. But realistically, if that doesn't happen, my first show is the Gasp Pro Qualifier in Sweden, which I went over to last year. Unbelievable show. And obviously, being sponsored by Gasp as well, it was another incentive to go and do it. But I've never seen a show like it in terms of how everyone's looked after backstage and the atmosphere and the energy there. So that's the first one. And for me, this year is a bit of a, I suppose, a defining season for me because look, the last prep, looking back, I'm nearly saying I shouldn't have competed because it was so soon after my injury, and I really didn't like how I looked when I was in that prep. And when you're in prep, there's always the mind games of like, do I really, do I look as bad as I think I look? But now looking back, I realize like then that self doubt was there really for a reason. But I'm also glad I did compete then because it gave me the chance to kind of see where I was after the injury and how far away I was, but without giving me really a proper, real answer. But knowing I could be much better with a proper off season, and that's exactly what me and Alan have done now. So I've had a very productive run in now, and basically the plan is to do Gasp. There's loads of shows the back end of the year and see where I'm at. And if I don't get a first call out with 6, 7, 8 lads, then I'm probably going to call it short and decide where I go from there. But realistically, it's the gas show first. See how we do. First call out, then I'll chat with Alan and go, right, what's next? What can we do? Where we go from there? But the ultimate goal this year is not to. I want to. I want to like how I look on stage. Like obviously, I'm now coming in legit me as a super heavyweight this year, and I want to really like how I look in terms of come in with that full muscle, that full round look, and actually look like a decent heavyweight or super heavyweight bodybuilder, I should say. So that's the ultimate goal, and then we'll take from there. So to answer your question, it's the GASP NPC qualifier in Sweden. I think it's the 22nd of September, and the exciting thing about this, I'm going to do my first ever prep series with Don. So we're going to be running a lot of videos from a few weeks out, and then get good few videos like 3-4 days out, running up the whole way to the show. So I go completely behind the scenes, give everyone a run in on everything, and you can see exactly what happens right up until show day. So that's the plan. Comparison, Stevie G51, Stephen Gerrard, how are you? Comparison between where you started to now. I don't know if you mean there where from me answering that question, is it where I started? Well, I started bodybuilding 12 years ago, and I was only like 57, 58 kilos when I first walked into a gym, and now I'm up to 139, and obviously competing in my first proper season as super heavyweight. So, and that's 12 years, and you could say I've been fairly relentless over them 12 years with my training and food and approach. But I suppose for anyone younger, I think you're quite young, you're in a good position because when I first started, there was no Instagram. I was getting advice from lads in the gym, and technically looking back at them guys in the gym, I would definitely not be going to get advice from them now. So it kind of puts into perspective in my mind, I'm kind of wish that I was probably starting now and I was younger like you, because there's so much more information out there. There's so much better access out there to good coaches and all the information that's out there to get better. But realistically, what's got me here and the comparison of there really is been all the food and training. But yeah, in a nutshell, I've like what over doubled my body weight, and we'll see this year if it's all paid off really. And what will I tell my old self? Well, my old self, I would kind of say, I think I've done the main principles. I always knew when I first started. It's a weird thing. I think you look at anyone now, you know the people that are working hard, you know the people that are doing stuff day in day out. They're the ones making the most progress. Sometimes the biggest guy in the gym is not always the best answer. It's the guy you can see who's getting better and better consistently over time. So if I could tell myself something, my old self is kind of like, I don't really know how to answer that fully, because I've kind of learned so much over this last time. But I feel like you're always going to consecutively get better the longer you do something. So if I was to try and change anything, maybe it's possibly one thing. Maybe is probably make sure you always use the fucking safety on a side back squat machine, so you don't end up with fucking fucked up knees. But in terms of my actual training and stuff, maybe starting out younger, messing around with like lifting heavy squats and trying to do 1 rep maxes and ego lift really. And now what I've actually found, even since my injury, I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to build my legs again, because I'm not going to be able to squat over 200 kilos again. But what's actually I realize is the mind muscle connection is the most important thing, and make sure you're trained to failure, and staying within a rough rep range. But I would say the ego lifting, if you want to be a power lifter, that's completely different. But if you want to be a good bodybuilder, it's not about how much weight you lift. So if I was to go back and kind of train more instinctively now with that mind muscle connection, I think I would be a lot further down the road. And most bodybuilders would say that. But look, we can't change the past, and I've got to this point to where I've been training the way I have, and now I think it's really starting to turn a screw in the last year or so. So it's just like anything, you get better over time. Next question is Dara, the Wave Dara. Great work, man. Thank you. Out of curiosity, how does your body mind tolerate Tren? Tren, I love Tren. Sometimes, but Tren's a funny one in the sense that it gives you, when you're deep in prep, it definitely gives you that extra strength in edge in strength, I should say, and you do get that level of aggression that's great inside the gym. But on the flip side, it doesn't work well when you come home and you're full of pre-workout and you're a little bit anxious after training. You can be a little bit up and down. So I would say it does affect your mood a good bit. But I think one thing I've learned as well, less is more when it comes to most anabolics, and especially Tren. And I've messed around with different doses back in the day, but I can tell you there's a sweet spot for me, and I'll be honest, it's probably in around the 100 to 200 milligram mark. And I think you should only use as much as you can tolerate, and that's the same with anything. So I'd say from that perspective, the last time I used Tren and prep, it was actually pretty fine. It's nearly more the lipolytics and the fat burners and stuff that can kind of have you a little bit jittery and anxious, that kind of maybe play on how the trends are making you feel. But I think if you use ashwagandha, and you're just kind of smart with your dosage and making sure that you're doing what you can tolerate, there shouldn't be an issue. The only other thing that can cause is obviously night sweats. So it makes sure that, and you can fucked up dreams as well. But in terms of, I can tolerate Tren pretty well. Just make sure that I have a good cooling blanket on the bed during the summer, because that's kind of always the time it seems to be when I'm prepping, is around September, October shows. So it's always during the summer, and obviously the weather is hotter then. But other than that, it doesn't bother me too much. It has definitely been an issue in the past when I've used higher dosages. So just find that sweet spot and make sure that you're not doing anything crazy, because obviously that's the most neurotoxic PED there is. So I'd be very mindful of you using it, and making sure that, I suppose, that you're conscious as well as your coach, and knowing what you're doing. Yeah.
Good answer.
Good answer.
That was a good answer.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm rambling.
No, that was a good answer.
Ooh, in my opinion, the top three best Irish bodybuilders of all time. That's not an easy one. Um, I suppose I'm only going to go in my time from when I started and getting to know bodybuilding. I know there's probably lots of good bodybuilders in the past, and I don't want to. Obviously, I'm sure I'll probably upset someone now by not mentioning their name.
But not limited to.
What was it?
Included but not limited to.
Included but not limited to
The following.
the following. If I was to pick three that's on the top of my mind now, I definitely have to say Billy Bourne from Northern Ireland. Um, he's definitely up there. I always remember seeing photos of Billy. I think he was kind of nearly at his height of his bodybuilding career when I first started. And he was, and I admired him more for his training as well. You look at all these guys, and you know the guys who train hard. It's simple, and they're obviously the guys then that you can see that level of musculature on stage, and obviously that's what I'm after. That's what I love about bodybuilding. Is that freaky Ronnie Coleman, Jay Cutler, big muscle on stage. So, and going on from that, then if I was to think of any other bodybuilders, I'd be more attracted, given my physique, to kind of taller, bigger guys. And another guy I'll always remember, it was the first show I ever did. I think it was a 2011 REBBF Nationals, and I was backstage as a junior. I mean, I was like, I think I was only about 64 kilos, an absolute whippet. And I was in the same room as Cottle Tiernan, who was a super heavyweight at the time. And I think he was competing in the over 90s at the REBBF. I think someone said I think he was about 106, 107 kilos. And I just remember looking at him backstage. I was like, what the fuck is that? And it was ever since then I was just like, I want to look like him. I want to be that size. And after time, I finally got to eventually get up to that weight. Is even though I still feel smaller than ever. But Cottle Tiernan, from my mind, I think he went on to do shows in Canada. Maybe possibly didn't reach the height of his potential because I think he retired young. But in my mind, he was definitely one of the best Irish bodybuilders I had seen. He's from Galway and trained in Galway City Gym back in the day. And then last but not least, probably the guy who had the most influence on my bodybuilding career is Mr. Loch Gannon, who we can call a good friend as well and coached me for a few years. Obviously, Mr. Universe, so that accolade alone, the same as I think Arnie won that back in 1979, has to. Loch won it in 2018, I think, and I was lucky enough to be there and witness that show. So without doubt, in terms of size and freakiness, I remember seeing Loch compete in person as well at the PCA show the year before that, maybe. And yeah, just the legs, the whole look. So from my own personal preference in my lifetime, they're the three guys that probably stick out to me the most.
Another good answer.
Yeah.
It's like a podcast.
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking a long Q&A, isn't it? It's lucky you only have about 6 questions.
Do a podcast.
I might keep these ones unnamed because they're a strange question, but very valid questions, and they're good questions to ask. But both of these are actually from the same person. Is it worth putting yourself into debt or to compete? Or so is it worth putting yourself into debt if you want to compete, or best waiting until more financially stable? And I think we all know the answer to that question is certainly the latter. Bodybuilding is a hobby that you have to be obsessed about because technically there's no balance if you want to go all in. But the last thing you want to do, and looking back in terms of where my bodybuilding career has got better, is because I've got better at my job, I've got better in my life, my wages have increased. So I've been able to fund that hobby more. When I first started, I was like still just fresh out of college. I started back on the floor in my father's business. I was literally on an apprenticeship wage. So from obviously that point of view, I think at the time watching them animal videos on YouTube of getting big on a budget of $50 and $100 really helped because you have to stick to the basics, and that's what bodybuilding is. So realistically, you should never put yourself into a hole if you just want to compete. The stage is always there. It's always going to be there. There's shows every year. But why would you affect your whole life to try and get on stage, and if you're not in a position to do so, when you're just going to be miserable then when you get over, you're not going to be able to give everything to that prep if you want to compete, because you're not going to be able to fund it, and you're going to be competing against guys then that are technically in a position to do so, so you're already at a disadvantage. So I would say definitely don't put yourself, start off, and I know by looking at your pictures you still have more time to go, and there's no rush. Keep improving, get the basics right, and make sure that the first thing you can do, your decision of prepping should mean, like, you should be asking yourself, is there anything coming up this year, like family events, weddings, that you're going to be able to work around? Is your life stable relationship wise, personal issues with family? You don't want anything affecting your prep, because stress is the biggest, I suppose, can be the biggest downfall of your physique when you're going into a prep and you're at that stage with low body fat, and it can mess up everything. It can do months of hard work. So I definitely say, if you want to put your focus into competing, make sure that you're putting your focus into your job and where you're going in the future as well, because bodybuilding is only going to be a certain part of your life, and then after that, you know what I mean. So if you're not going to be Mr. Olympia, you're not going to be able to really make a living from this. Loads of people are doing that. So make sure that when you come out at that, you're going to be in a position to excel in the rest of your life. So that's one thing. I suppose even myself and Karen have talked about that. Like, you have to be in a position. I'm lucky now, we're building our house at the minute, and I'm thinking, like, how was I going to do all this and do bodybuilding at the same time? But like, you work in other aspects of life as well, and make sure that you can fund both. But there's always a limit to what you can do. Everybody's different. So you have to kind of realize where's your limit and make it work. But don't ever put yourself into a financial hole. Definitely not. Hope that answers that all right.
That was a good one too.
When should I accept giving up on my bodybuilding goals and dreams? I'm always 2 steps back, or 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. And realistically, I suppose, first of all, we all might have aspirations of being the next Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler and Mr. Olympia, but are we going to be that? No. Literally 1% of anyone probably as a bodybuilder competing will only ever get to that level, or even near that level. So you kind of have to ask yourself, where am I now? You have to kind of look at yourself subjectively, take yourself, your name, your persona out of that person, and just look at it from the outside in, and kind of think, right, where actually am I? And rather than setting a long-term goal of 10 years time, do mini goals in between and go, right, just say, right, I'm in this position now, I want to get, my arms are 18 inches. Just say, right, is it physically possible if I train hard for the next 6 months that I could possibly get them to 19? Yes. Well, then set mini goals. Don't because you go straight from 17-inch arms to 24-inch arms. You need to go take it in baby steps. So I kind of say you have to look at where you are now and try be very, very, I suppose, shrewd and hard on yourself to go, right, where can I be? And maybe you don't have to give up your goals. Maybe you have to change your goals, and maybe make that bodybuilding goal that you had that was probably just a little bit too high, maybe bring it down a notch. Not because you might not get there, but you will give yourself more confidence if you can hit these other notches on the ladder first, and take your time to kind of climb up and hit them mini goals. And then off the back of them, you'll get that momentum and you'll keep getting better. So I wouldn't say give up on your full dream, but you just have to be a bit realistic of where you are now, and set a new goal and give yourself a target for 2024. Where am I going to be by the end of this year? And sometimes it's just having the right guidance, the best people around you, so make sure that you're in a good circle of people, that your coach or whoever is the right person for you, that you feel like you're getting the best. And then, and sometimes you might actually have to hear things that you don't want to hear, but it's better to get the truth than getting, I suppose, deluded with thoughts and notions, because you're only going to set yourself up for failure and you're only going to be upset. So that's the simple answer there. And then you won't feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and 2 steps back. You'll feel like that if I'm trying to say I want to be Mr. Olympia. I'm going to feel like I'm miles away, and I am. So that's where that goal is not even achievable for me. So why? Of course, I would feel like I'm going backwards all the time. So I was like, no, let's set another goal, and I want to compete this year and see where I am. And I'm not, you see, I'm not even giving myself expectations of where I'm going to be this year. I have a level, and I know how I want to look, and that's my goal. That's my personal goal. Everybody else's goals are different, and you have to realize that you have to set goals that are specific to yourself, and then just keep chipping away and believe in yourself, and then you'll be a lot more confident, and you can definitely get somewhere and a lot further than you possibly think. But that's the easiest way, I think, of answering that. What's been the main attributes to being getting so much progress this off season? I would say the biggest thing that's changed for me this time is obviously coming off the back of my accident and that last prep where I wasn't able to train my legs properly. My leg training now is really progressed a lot. So obviously I've been able to feel like I've been able to get my legs up a lot more than what they would have been previously. So that's been a big aspect. I still feel like I still have a bit more. I think my upper body has progressed nearly more than my legs, but I'm still pretty much balanced than I ever been before. But my being back to being able to push myself with proper leg days has been massive to improving my legs. And obviously then Alan tweaked my programming, and where we did 2 push days per week, and I've had most of that nearly over the last 18 months consecutively. Well, before, if I felt like I needed to bring up my chest, I might have added more volume and different. I wouldn't. Now we're kind of nearly hitting it every third, fourth day once it's recovered, and the type of movements within that then are much different than I would now that I'm training Alan's gym. Like you'll see in my next push day, gym leco press, chest press, convergent press, 2-second pauses. I just have much better connection in my chest than I've have done before. So Alan's kind of pulled everything back. I've built back up the form and my strength back from literally just making sure I'm connecting with the muscle. Well, before I could bench 180 for reps flat bench, and I still have a pigeon chest. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that's why I was like touching on earlier, the whole concept of being able to connect with your muscle now. Well, then using progressive overload, ensuring that you're not dropping form along the way, has been massive. And now my chest is actually a pretty decent body part, I feel, this year. And along to that, the same with arms, rather than just trying to swing fucking 27 kilo dumbbells now. You know, I'm back to 60-75% of that, and just making sure that I'm connecting with the muscle properly, and then obviously train to failure like I've always been. But now I'm having less issues with joints, which have then again been able to stay injury free the whole way through this off season. So that's been massive to making sure that I can keep progressing as well. And then obviously, look, the biggest aspect from progress is recovery standpoint. And the main thing that's really helped with that is since I've started bodybuilding 11, 12 years ago, I was always in a job where I was working, say, finishing a 5 in the evening, 9 to 5, or it was literally 8 till 4:30 or whatever. But I'd have to train in the evening, and then you go crazy in the gym in the evening. Your heart rate's elevated, and then you're up till fucking 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night trying to get in all your food. And that's one thing I've always relentless in. I never missed food along the way, so I would be sacrificing a lot of sleep. And then you're waking up the next morning, have to get up early around 6. You have to do cardio, and then you have to go into work early, and you're absolutely broke up, feeling you get hit by a car most of the time. But like I just went through that, and it wasn't until I was in a position this year that I could actually swing my training completely around. And I was doing some reading. I was talking to Alan about it because Alan was training early mornings, and I was like, geez, I might give this a go. So me and Karen changed around our routine, and now I get up 4:30, 5 o'clock, get a meal in, and we're training normally around 6, half 6 every morning, and I'm back then, get a quick meal in, and then I'm into work. And I'm not in much work. I'm not in work much later than I would have been before, but now I can actually stay in work a bit later, get stuff done. I'm not in a rush home to get training, and when I come home, I only have to eat a meal, and we can go for a walk. I feel like I'm actually getting some downtime in the evening, and because of that, now I might get some steps in, some fresh air. We might watch Netflix for half an hour, and we're actually relaxing before going to bed. So now I'm going to bed, and my heart rate is much lower than it would be if I was after training. And obviously your heart rate is elevated for hours after training. So now when I actually go to bed, I'm falling into a much deeper sleep. And I remember my aura ring before I started training in the mornings was giving me like ready this low sleep, averaging probably in around 60 on the aura ring. Now my sleep and readiness in the aura ring stays in around, the lowest it would go is probably about high 70s. So from that standpoint, I know my body's recovering. I'm feeling better myself, so I don't need this aura ring to tell me, but I know that my recovery is so much better. 2 days on, 1 day off, I was not able to do in the past either. If I was training at night time because just body was not recovering. But now I can. So now I've been able to hit more volume, been able to hit more training across the weeks and months because I can keep up that 2 day on, 1 day off, and then my sleep has been so good. So I've been able to just recover so much better. And we're prioritizing sleep as well. So if we're getting up at 4:30, we're making sure that we're trying to be in bed for 8 o'clock, trying to minimize or get minimal 7 to 8 hours sleep per night. So if anyone can shift their training from evening till morning, I would highly recommend that. I know some people, it's like a trend of why are people training in the morning now all of a sudden is a cool thing to do, but no, it's not because it's trend. It's actually, I've done it now and I could never go back to training in the evening because I've got so much of a benefit of this off season. And then kind of coming into the last question with that as well, obviously we touched on it and we'll touch on it a little bit in the push day video. I think Alan brought it up, but I've been able to keep my health markers in a very, very good spot this off season. I've been able to keep my food up. And once you can keep your appetite high and your body healthy, you can stay in a surplus for months and months at a time. And then you'll reap the benefits of being able to progressively grow and get bigger and stronger over a long period of time rather than having these like 12-week blasts and 6 weeks off and you're up down and you're not really getting you're staying pretty stagnant, or I suppose the curve is very, very small. Well, now it's been a very constant curve this off season. So, and I put that down to being able to keep my blood markers healthy, and we kept the dosages very minimal coming off the back of the last show and trying to get basically as much of less as possible, if that makes sense. So not just going straight in, fucking gram a test, crazy dosages, and then having your bloods fucked and have to come off for months. It's literally like not coming up just over my TRT dose, which is about 175 milligrams up to 250, staying there for 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks until we get to a point where we're kind of weights plateauing, performance is plateauing, then we'll add in another little bit more. Then we'll get bloods assessed. And I've been able to do that, and I think I've actually been on consecutively now for nearly 6 months. But my bloods, again, got my bloods done 2 weeks ago, and they're absolutely bang on. They're perfect. So obviously my hormones are skewed, but that's to be expected. But all my other markers in terms of my lipids, my blood markers, red blood cells, everything are within range. So we've done this in a very controlled manner. And now I think, like, to touch onto what my current cycle is, I think I've just literally gone up to 500 milligrams a test in the last 2 weeks, and we're going to maintain that for the next 6 weeks until my. So as you can see, I've been on gear for the last 6, 7 months, and we had probably a 2 month period before that, and then it was on for about 6 months. So it's basically been on nearly a full year, but we've climbed up to 500 milligrams very, very slowly, and that's the key. Well, most guys' cycles probably at least minimum start with 500 milligrams a test, while we've gone the other way around. And obviously alongside that, we've crept up Masteron. Masteron now is up to 1250 milligrams, which again has been brought up alongside that, keeping estrogen in control, because that's obviously the main thing. When you're gaining weight and you're increasing your testosterone, you need to keep estrogen in check. So that's been the major two components of my cycle the last while. And we've also had MPP in at, I think, I'll actually just get it up on my phone here so I'm not just throwing things off the cuff. So MPP is being 250 milligrams, which has only been brought in the last 6, 7 weeks. And I think we did a stint of that then in the end of the last phase about 6 months ago as well. So again, as I say, we're not just going in with all the compounds at once. We're slowly increasing. and getting less out of more. Alongside that, then have metformin for its protective cases in terms of like it keeps blood sugar in range, and there's loads of anti-aging studies in that as well. So it's a very good component to have in there along when you're using anabolics, along with telmisartan, which keeps your blood pressure in check. My blood pressure is very good, especially at this weight. Well, before, I remember getting heavy in the off season, my blood pressure would be completely out of whack, and it wasn't something I managed. I check my blood pressure every single day, and Alan notes that as well, and we make sure as soon as there is an elevation, we know we need to change it. But there's nothing we've had to do because we've took a very steady approach. And then really alongside that, it's only just been using recombinant human growth hormone. We're taking 3.6 IU because I use the genotropin pens from Turkey. So I use the proper pharma grade stuff, and I'm using 1.8 IU in the morning, 1.8 IU in the evening. So as everyone knows, that shit's costly enough. So a pen lasts me about 10 days. So that's why I have it split down to 1.8 and 1.8 to get, because they're 36 IU pens. So I get 3.6 IU per day. And then we've been just obviously using some Lantus and Nova Rapid from a blood sugar control point of view with insulin. So at the minute I'm on 20 IU daily of Lantus in the morning, which I have at meal 1. And then I'm using 7 IU of Nova Rapid pre-workout and 7 IU post-workout. So yeah, altogether probably my total milligram load then is, what's that? It's just probably shy of 2 grams in total. Then plus the metformin, telmisartan, which are there from a more health standpoint. We've also got some T4 in there for some thyroid control. Make sure that keeps in check, and it's obviously helped me keep a bit leaner this off season, along with the growth hormone, and then the Lantus and Nova Rapid, which is really there to ensure that we don't get spikes in blood sugar. We can control, because obviously I'm on nearly 1100 grams of carbs now per day, so that's in there to ensure that we're using all that food, and it's being shuttled in, especially around the training window, and we're not just consuming excessive carbs and then gaining excessive body fat. So that's there as well to kind of make sure that the engine is being used correctly, and you're able to kind of use the fuel you're putting in rather than getting sloppy in the off season. And that again also boils back to the last question, was staying in a lot more controlled manner. I haven't been really, I might have one off plan meal a week. Sometimes we don't bother because my food's so high, but being very treating your off season like a prep is the real key to making progress in the off season, because if you're on the ball about everything, as soon as something goes off, you know, then hold on a minute, I changed this, I done that. Well, if you're just taking every day as it comes, you don't know what's triggering an issue or what's causing bloating. While if everything is calculated, it's very easy then change it and go from there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So that's my cycle. That's what I've been running the last while. That's the secret. Very controlled, safe manner. Nothing special. Again, disclaimer, that's my cycle for me based on my blood work, which I get done every 6 to 8 weeks. So don't think that's something, as I said, be smart about it. Get as much from less as possible, and you'll be able to go and have a longer progressive off season, because your health will stay in check. And remember, that's all we have. Bodybuilding is a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So the last thing you want to do is mess up your health. So yeah, job done. Push day next. Catch it on the next video. I won't ramble anymore. So yeah, cheers guys, and don't forget to like, subscribe, use my code McGee15 for any gas clothing, and Strom Sports Ireland Juggernaut 10 for all your supplements, and I'll catch you on the next one.